Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you have a terrific day ahead of you. In today's video, I have for you my Game Week 3 transfer plans, I have for you my Game Week review, and of course, FPL match analysis sandwiched in the middle. But before, a little story. The first take I recorded of this introduction, I was discussing about how this game week was really enjoyable. And then I stopped myself and I was like, Gian, you can't say that because it wasn't enjoyable. In fact, I think this is one of the least enjoyable game weeks I've had in a while. Not so much for the fact that it was just 50 points. I'm actually quite happy with my rank, as we'll come on to. But it was more so that the standard of football overall was really poor. There just weren't many exciting things that happened. And the bulk of it really came in game week on the Friday night fixture. Because after that, I've scored 30 points from 9 players. And if you include the captain as 2, that's 30 from 10 from a whole Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, which had a lot more promise. So it wasn't the most enjoyable. Hopefully, game week 3 will be. If you've been enjoying the content around here, if you're new around here, I'd really appreciate a like and subscribe to the channel. Without anything else needing to be said, let's get into it. As per usual, I will combine the goalkeeping review with that of an overall performance review, the team and the rank. You know what? If you told me I'd be ranked 5 million for game week 2, at the end of game week 2, and I got a red arrow from game week 1, and my team value wouldn't even be 100 million, I don't think I'd have been best pleased at it. Initially, at least. But I'm actually really happy. Okay, really happy? No, I am really happy with the rank. I think I'm doing pretty well at the moment, to be honest with you, because I think my team's going in a really good direction. I really like the players I have. Obviously, we've got a couple of injuries, which we'll discuss. We'll see in the title. But overall, I think the team's really solid, and I'm not too worried about people being ranked to, like, let's say 1 million. It's only like 20-something points. No biggie. You'll do that with one player hauls if you captain it, right? One Salah haul, bang, done. And a lot of people at higher ranks won't have him. And like I said, I'm just really happy with the team. I think the selections have been good. It's still so close. Give it an X number of weeks, a few weeks, and it'll sort itself out. So that's my view on the rank. And I think the best way to view it in terms of how you're doing is maybe just compare yourself to the engaged field, and right about there I'm really in the mix, so I'm good with it. If you're not, that's completely okay. I'm sure it'll get better for you, or hopefully it will. Goalkeeper, I mean, I've already got his point score wrong because no, I got his point score right because he got a yellow point, yellow card. You can tell I'm not even tired. Yellow card. Should I start Dubravka? Honestly, no. We'll come on to a Stev, which I think I made a mistake with. But I don't think I should have started Dubravka. I think Sells was definitely the better shout. Had a really high ceiling at Palace. And to be honest, they didn't exactly have too much. I mean, they had the Gay header at the end of the half. They had Matesta's chance, which he maybe could have slipped Sarr in a bit earlier. And it wasn't great defending, which is great play in general for Sarr's goal. They're still one of the best defenses in the league, on paper at least. And I'm still very comfortable with them. Talking about the best defenses, Palace are amazing. I love this side defensively. And I'm so happy that my triple Chelsea and triple Forest, I got them out the way. But I don't think I made a mistake here. Yeah, it was a 4-point swing, but I thought it was a fairly straightforward decision to start Sells. And it will come good, that I'm sure of. Another unexpected feat of the game week was the scores you see on screen. I mean, not one clean sheet between the bunch. And it's not like I've got some cheap defense. I mean, I've paid top dollar for this defense, and it hasn't quite come out this game. But I'm sure it's working out for the best. What you'll see in the next slide is that Josh King is first bench, and he comes in place of Cole Palmer. That was the mistake. That was probably the only mistake. Maybe I shouldn't have played AIT-NOURI because I said that they were going to concede earlier in the game week, earlier in the week when I was recording. Obviously, he came off beforehand, but he should have been on the bench for the fact that Spurs were probably going to score. So even maybe with a misstep in both places. Definitely in the Josh King one. But we don't need to dwell there. 4 points, 5 points, whatever. It's what it is. Done. Kirkes, I felt really good about the clean sheet. I mean, Newcastle missed all those chances in the first half. He was picking up DEFCON. He was already on 5, and then he ended on 9, and I was counting, and I was like, all right, you've got about 4.5 minutes to get one. Come on. Then they score, and it just goes away. And they'd obviously gone down to 10 men, and I was like, yeah, I'm getting this, and I'm hauling here, but that wasn't to happen. AIT-NOURI, I felt pretty good about after the first 20. Spurs didn't have too much in the first 20. They gets injured. It was a weird injury as well. It looked very much like a contact injury that caused it, which is unique. Williams obviously took a while for Forest to get it, as Palace to get it, so felt decent there. I feel like these attacking returns just always evade him. Like, his cross is always just a little bit short, a little bit long. Naturally, it was against Palace, so it's always going to be harder. 3 centre-backs, very good in the air. But against the sides who don't post this type of defensive prowess, like West Ham, who conceded a multitude of goals from corners and crosses this season, I would like a bit more. And Cucurella, my favourite defender, the best defender in the game, in my opinion. I mean, especially when you lose your clean sheet so early, to basically get it back in the form of a 5-pointer from an assist was certainly very welcome. Like I said, we've obviously got the FPL match analysis section, so we can go into it there a little bit more. I thought Kirk has looked a bit more assured this week. Very rash against Bournemouth, but this week, obviously at fault for the first goal, but this week in general, a lot more assured. AIT-NOURI 1v1 has just got like progressively better in this game between the start of the Wolves game and how he's doing now. Obviously injured. He's spoken about transfer plans, probably out for 3 weeks, not selling. Williams plays for Forest, West Ham at home next. Nothing to really say there. Overall as well, Forest defensively, after they conceded the first goal, really tightened up, and Palace didn't have much, so that's that. I tweeted that Cole Palmer would have scored a century quicker than Chris Gale if he started on Friday night. Very well may have been the case because they were poor. I was quite happy when I saw Cole Palmer wasn't playing, because when Jamie Redknapp said that he wasn't striking the ball particularly well in the warm-up earlier, then Sky Sports showed him going off with the physio, I assume. The worst thing would have been start for 10, go down and call it a day. So when they said he was out of the lineup, I was like, all right, you know what? From an FPL perspective, this is sound. William Esteva came in, the analysis to follow, did really well. And then obviously, JP puts up 15 and Cucurella gets 5. So that's great. The armband goes to Mo. Why it says 8 points, again, I don't know why it's the only mistake. Why it says 8 points, I don't know. Obviously, should say 10. But yeah, I mean, really late against Bournemouth. I was even going to tweet 101st minute daggers coming, and it pretty much was. I thought he was going to be the one to score, but it was Rio, and good on him, right? 16-year-old getting that type of goal. Great goal. A lot of things to admire about it. Confidence, ball striking, positioning, so on and so on. And Szoboszlai has obviously done me as well. Salah, I mean, I think with Wirtz pulling to that left-hand side a bit more and not having Trent on the right, who's just, phenomenal. The supply into him is reduced, and you're not seeing as much get into him as you would like. Now, he's so good that he can make it look okay from a lesser volume where other players can't. But if you really want him hauling big again, you probably want to change that dynamic a little bit. Look, he can still do it because he's just that good, but you're making it harder for him at the moment. Something to consider. And then Iliman Ndiaye, I mean, I love that goal. Definitely one of my favorite moments of the game, naturally. There weren't too many returns. But I was watching the Forest game, and then they showed the Everton goal, and I was like, oh, who's going to get on the end of this, him or Barry? And it was him. And I didn't actually think it was going to be. So that was great. And definitely repaid the faith that I had throughout the whole of pre-season. With Wolves away and Villa at home next, he looks pretty good to go for that, and he's still 6'5", really good value. Tyler Dibling's come in, so another play off the right. He's come in for a big fee, and he's top, so he'll almost definitely start on the right most games when he's ready to go. Grealish has definitely got that left-hand side locked down. So I'm just hoping he plays him in the middle. I mean, he played Dewsbury Hall there, but for me, personally, Ndiaye should play there. And if he does, there'll definitely be some routes to points for him in that team. And whether that's the best structure for Everton as a side who want to compete, obviously they've got so much quality, but I think you'd probably want one different type of profile as opposed to like Grealish and Ndiaye dribbling. But in terms of FPL, it's good enough. I really don't care. So that would be sound. Josh King had some moments. I mean, I thought he should have done better with the chance in the first half. And then Yoro made an unbelievable tackle on him in the second half where he was nearly through. But some promising signs. I was just about to click off, and then I noticed the guy down on the bench. I'm happy to hold my hands up. I mean, I really disagree with Unai Emery's approach, but you know what? He's the manager. I have to respect that. Yeah, I'll just hold my hands up with this one. Probably got it wrong. I don't even think he's going to start Palace. So yeah, I'll hold my hands up with this one. Some of you who did not see my post may have been slightly surprised that Dominic Solanke is not up top, but Evan Nilsson is. The more time that went on, the more I realized that, you know what, Solanke's probably not going to start, especially when Thomas Frank comes out and say that Richarlison is his starting now. Now, one thing that clicked in my head, not actually on Friday night, otherwise Evan Nilsson would not be sitting here, but on Sunday, yesterday, was that, well, actually, given the time of recording 2 days ago, was that it was Richarlison I should have gone for at the start of the season. Now, that sounds really easy and full of hindsight, but allow me to explain. I was so bullish on the Spurs 9 that I would just was tunnel focused on Solanke because it was the Spurs 9 that I wanted as opposed to just Solanke. But what I didn't do was actually predict the expected minutes. And Richarlison didn't even come into my field of view. And had he done so, maybe I would have gone there. But really, it was my misinterpretation of expected minutes, which led me to Solanke. But it should, if it was right, have led me to Richarlison. And that was the pick. That was the play. Which is just, it is what it is. But that's why I was so bullish on Solanke. Because I knew the Spurs line was going to be gone. And that too for a long time. I just went for the wrong one. In terms of Evan Nilsson, I'm really happy with the pick going forward. I actually looked at this Wolves at home fixture and I was like, you know what? With Spurs away after, and they've got Newcastle who they play as well, and another challenging game, all three of those games are suited to how Bournemouth play and the type of players that Bournemouth have. They don't really have these block breakers, hence why you saw when Wolves went to 10 men against Bournemouth, they didn't really thrive and make too many chances. But you give them games which are full of transitions, very physical, it's just a bit more basketball-like, as we expressed last season, then they can really hurt you. And with the games that are coming up, I actually think, yeah, okay, on the FDR and for the defense, it might be worse, but it suits their attack more. It suits him more, suits Semenyo more, suits Kluivert more, who's back now as well. I don't think he'll start Spurs, but the game after that. So with all that being said, I'm very happy with the pick going forward. Wood, I thought he should have scored his first chance in the half, but apart from that, didn't really have much. Snapshot in the second one, which maybe he actually was onside and should have put away. But other than that, you know what? He did so well in Game Week 1. I'll let him off. He's got West Ham to certainly do some damage to other people's ranks as well. And then my favourite forward in the game, JP, I mean, he really came through. Just basically getting two returns from corners, right? And what I'd say about him is there was actually more available for him than just 15 points. There was instances in the second half where he just wasn't found, or the final pass was a little bit off. The final movement was either a little bit slow, a little bit quick. But in general, it looked very good. And there were a lot of opportunities that could have turned into big ones to return. Overall, I love the pick. I love the price. I love the player. And I think if you don't have him, your season might be really challenging because come game week, let's say 4, right? That stretch from 4 to 11, when he has those tough games, I think he's going to present such excellent value. Because as we said last season, this is the giant slayer. This is someone who performs really well in these big games. He's suited to them, similar to Bournemouth in a way. And at this price, he'll present such good value. But for me, he's probably just not going to go anywhere. And I would really consider getting him in if you don't have him already. Friday Night Football and Chelsea have a new system. One which I shall now explain. Firstly, you've got a different type of 9 profile to the one we've had. Previously, we had Nicholas Jackson, who's very much a runner and someone who thrives in transition. We obviously had João Pedro in pre-season and against Crystal Palace, someone who probably wants to drop a little bit deeper to combine in a second striker like type fashion, who's even comfortable dropping deeper to carry. In Liam Delap at 9, you have a more old school striker, right? Someone who will pin the centre back, someone who's very happy to engage in a lot of hold-up play, someone you can go into, and someone with his unique skill set that will also do that whilst running in behind. Huge physical presence that at least at one centre back has always got to be cautious of, but maybe even at times 2 in close proximity. This allows a lot of things, especially when you have a second striker playing behind him in João Pedro, because we very much employed a 3-2-4-1 of sorts, which I will show you. And you've also got another 10. We were pretty much using dual 10s in William Estavo on the right-hand side, as we'll go to now. So here you will see Chelsea's new structure. Where against Crystal Palace, you would assume a diamond midfield. Actually, on this picture, it looks like that shape. But it's the way it functions is very much a bit different. Because as opposed to having a number 10, who's right at the top of the diamond, you almost have split 10s in João Pedro and William Estavo. Estavo will drop deeper at times. Sometimes it'd be Enzo Fernandez. But nonetheless, this is how it's functioning. As opposed to Cucurella being in those Enzo-like positions and functioning as a box crasher. It was Enzo doing that, a more traditional midfielder. And here's the key. Last time you had a right back who formed a 3 and was the right centre back, but at the top of your screen, you can see Malagusto. And what this does is it allows the right side 10/8, however you want to interpret it, to basically pick up the pockets that he currently is in that right half space. Now, this system was, of course, designed for Cole Palmer, who was meant to play, and this would be his bread and butter. I mean, you constantly get the ball into him in the right half space. No one really to interfere. You've got a right-sided centre-back who's right-footed to be able to play that pass into him. You've got essentially a winger in Gusto whose sole function really going forward is just to supply Cole Palmer as well. And that's what this new system did, right? It gave you Enzo at left centre mid, which was so useful. It highlighted his abilities to crash the box as well because he didn't have other responsibilities that he might in a more restrictive right-hand side role in the Diamonds. It showed his passing range off a little bit more. João Pedro was floating so well, sometimes combining with Delap, sometimes combine with Enzo or Estavo. And his understanding of the role was so good as well, right? And naturally being so because he's so intelligent and he's played these type of positions a lot in the past. He also gives you a lot out of possession, right? So this role is very much primed for when Palmer, or system, is very much primed for when Palmer comes back to hurt teams. And just to continue with what I was speaking about in Delap, this is the third Chelsea goal, right? You've got Estava who's not functioning really deep, right? Like Enzo would have if he was playing on the right side of the diamond in that system, or really wide like you've seen at times. But he's close enough to that right half space, right? Delap's obviously holding up the centre-back. He's pinning him. The ball's gone into him, and then he lays it off for Estava, runs past, cuts it back. Enzo, third goal. This system, like I've expressed, is very much built for Palmer's optimization, and it's one where we can score a lot of goals because it's bringing the best out of Enzo going forward, the best out of João Pedro in terms of where he wants to be, the best out of Delap for the team. Yeah, in terms of him solely, maybe not. It depends how the opposition line up, but he's going to have a lot of supply at least, and Palmer most definitely. So, moving on to West Ham, there were a few issues, and one we're going to discuss is actually Kilman's positioning. That left centre-back in a 3 is tailor-made for him, in my opinion. And they've got him playing in the middle, and the angles in which he engages in the middle, is forced to engage in the middle, are not ones which I think are particularly suited to him. I think if you want Kilman defending anywhere, left of a 3 is really, really, really good for him. And it's just in the way that his body moves, particularly forward, on that left-hand side as opposed to the middle in terms of what you're engaging with. Agard in that left half space just doesn't understand it as well as him. Also not the same physical presence, and he's been caught out in the game against us and also in the image you can see on screen. So that's one issue. An issue that I've been banging on about for so long, and I was saying again and again and again, recruit in the transfer market for this is them in transition due to their legs they've got in midfield or lack of, and it really doesn't help them. You can play through them so easily. And also, if you've got that, structurally, you've got to find a way around that, and this system doesn't do that. The out-of-possession work from the front 3 isn't as good as you would like. And the other thing is utilising wing-backs, as I said, with a structural issue. If you've got issues in defensive transition, having 2 already really wide, meaning the centre's not compact, is just not going to help you at all. So I think they've really got to find some form of a solution. Use a really weird system where you've got your wing backs quite narrow, but could potentially be one. You'd need players though that are comfortable in those pockets, which isn't really due, for example. So they've got to find something. It's not my job to do that. It's my job to tell you the weaknesses here in this case, so that you can exploit them going forward with FPL picks. The last thing is, I don't think we were elite. There were obviously good parts to our game, but we were made to look better than maybe we would have been by a better side in the league. So don't get carried away with us. Still think Fulham's going to be a really tough test on Saturday. If you're tired of that feeling on a Sunday night, that feeling that you don't really like come the close of the game week when you're looking at a big red arrow, if you're tired of wanting to bounce an idea off someone of the last minute or a few people and get a lot of information, but you don't currently have that available to yourself, or you're just fed up with your friend winning the mini league every year with what seems like a Midas touch, then consider joining my community. Because what I can guarantee is if you engage in our community, right, you just engage even a little bit, you will feel better come Sunday night when the close of the game week happens. Whether it be a big red or a big green, you will feel better, right? The lows, how low they are, it will certainly be reduced. You can also guarantee that anytime you pop it in there, at some point, someone's going to reply. And chances are more than one person's going to reply to any and every query that you have. And I can guarantee you have a better chance of winning your mini league this time around. I can't say you're going to win FPL this year, but you'll have a better chance and you'll have much more fun playing it this time around. So if that's of interest to you, if you want to feel better come that Sunday night and have more success, then consider joining with the link below. I would absolutely love to have you. And the sooner you join, the better your chances of a good season will be. Palhinha made one particular tackle in the second half where I was just like, wow, how he got his leg across, how he sprung to actually win the ball from where he was initially was remarkable. And I honestly think he might be the most important player. There's no direct replacement for him in the squad. And when you look at their performance against Burnley, the big thing they were missing was his dueling, was his tackling. You stick that back in. And with the defense they've already got, it's one hard one to break. And then you employ Thomas Frank's man-to-man pressing at the start and the way they get back into the block, how they work for each other. This is a really, really impressive team. This is a really impressive player. Bayern might have got one wrong here. I love how Sarr and Bentancur complement each other. I mean, Bentancur's positional understanding, and same with Sarr's, just Bentancur slightly more defensive, Sarr slightly more attacking, is just marvelous. I mean, Sarr's advancements into the final third, the frequency, but particularly when he does it, just great. And then you're getting a lot off the ball. And if you watch the game at 12:30, you would have heard Ali McCoy speak a lot about how much Sarr's getting up and down, right? And he's competent in the final third, competent enough in the final third for now, right? Bentancur's so useful in build-up. I remember a game away at Old Trafford last season, and Ange was employing this 2-1 structure. And the build-up just looked so good. Against City, there was one particular bit of play where Bentancur floated to the right. He acted as a bounce pass for Porra, and it was just so good, right? So competent on the ball, great retention. This midfield pair, alongside Palhinha, is working wonderfully well, right? Johnson's got a knack for it. He just scores a lot of goals. I mean, scored a Europa League final, scored a lot of goals in the build-up to the Europa League final last season, in the Prem as well, scores away at City. He's got a knack for it. My concern with him picking him is the ceiling, right? He seems to just get one and then he's done. But he's really got an app for it. So that's something to consider when you're playing him. Just a guy who likes a goal. And when you have that gene, it's very useful. Kudus displayed this wonderful ability to carry centrally away at Arsenal last season. And as he's done many times before and after as well, particularly before. And he did it again against Manchester City, obviously more so on the right as well. And it's such a good pressure release because, say, City are pressing and it's a very intense and aggressive press and the ball just seems like it's going to be lost. You stick it into him, the retention, the way it glues, how hard it is to knock him off, his ability to ride contact, just great. And Richarlison, as I spoke about in the Solanke, Evan Nilsson section earlier, he is alive. I mean, he looks so good. And there's something I want to speak about here. Forget the fixtures and how good they are coming up and all the form and all that. What Thomas Frank has done for him is provided him this support that I think him in particular, he may need where he's at. Obviously, last season, you saw his struggles with his mental health. And for a manager to go out into the media and say publicly, this is my 9, I can only imagine what he's doing behind the cameras in terms of how much he's supporting him. And you can see someone like this, when he has that confidence and the ability that he's got, he's going to thrive. And he is thriving. So he is very much alive and he's a dangerous asset. Most people, most content creators aren't putting it out there to pick him, and I understand why. But I would really strongly consider it because at the moment, he just looks so good. The Haaland-Marmoush dynamic, which we're going to come on to here. This image right here very much encapsulates the whole dynamic. They've gone long into Haaland, and Marmoush is looking to basically get onto the second ball, get onto Haaland's flick, and go through on goal. And that is so symbolic of their dynamic, in my opinion. It's very much Haaland supplying for Marmoush. So when they played together, I think you have to lower your expectation of Haaland's output on the assumption the opposition are competent, right? That's not good, in my opinion, for Haaland, right? Like, if there's anyone you want to sacrifice, it's not him. It's not your best attacking weapon, in my opinion. Now, I thought it was an interesting selection and what I completely understood for this particular game because having players with really good ball striking against Thomas Frank side when he's playing City, very useful because when they get into their block, very difficult to break and you want that as an avenue to goals. So I don't think it's worth it though, overall, in the long term, to go with this dynamic. So when it does prop up, I would consider it. And you saw Haaland provide him with a chance where he slipped in through really nice. Marmoush was in the middle and Vicaria saved well, right? Again, it was an example of like that should be Haaland realistically getting onto that with like a Foden playing that, not the other way around. So that's something to consider about the dynamic and we saw it a lot last season. Foden would have been so good for this particular game. I mean, you get someone in the right half space who can function as a creator, and he would have done so more for Holland maybe than you would have seen in the past. I think he's changed that bit of his game slightly, but also to have as a shooter, as I expressed against this type of block when they get in, you want someone in the pocket to be able to shoot, and his ball striking is so good, and he's so good at that particular shot, that one where he comes inside and just rifles it almost into the roof of the net the way it rises. Having that in this type of game would have been so useful. I feel like Cherki maybe struggled with the intensity a little bit, and Foden would have appeared to have more time in the pocket. And then Thomas Frank, I mean, he's just doing a phenomenal job. He looked really difficult to beat. Really, really difficult to beat. Yeah, on another day they do concede because Haaland probably should have set Cherki up. Marmoush should have scored the first one. Rodri should have scored the header, in my opinion. That happens in every game, right? In every game, you're going to concede at least one chance when you're playing a top side. But overall, I mean, there were so many things to be impressed by. Obviously, we've spoken about the players, but him tactically as well. Great man manager as well. So you can expect this to keep going. When Europe starts, if they don't have depth, yeah, then they're in issues because they've also got like some more injury-prone players in this squad. So they definitely need some recruits. But if they do get it, these guys are going to score goals and they probably keep some clean sheets along the way as well. Albeit, if there was a ratio, I'd back them to score more than keep cleans. I spoke earlier about Bournemouth's attacking dynamics and how they very much favour games which are going to be more transitional in nature, as opposed to these ones where they're tasked with breaking a very stubborn block down. Semenyo, Tavernier, Cliver, Brooks, they're all more suited to that. Evan Nilsson, I think, is a bit more of a hybrid, but the rest of those guys, not to say they can't do it, they're just more suited to those transitional games, especially when you consider the midfield two behind them in Tyler Adams, for example, and even the fullbacks in Truffer and how he wants to get up and down, similar to Kirkes, and put crosses in, and then all of them looking to exploit space and their game model as well, of course, right? You want a side that, for example, is going to play out a lot against you because they counter-press and press so intensely. So in these bigger games that are coming up, Spurs, Newcastle, this is where I actually think you might have a better chance of them getting attacking returns. So when you get to brace against Liverpool, for example, look at where the goals stem from, look at the situations. Saying that, he should have had a brace in this game. I mean, misses a really good chance in the first half, misses a good one in the second half as well. Quite a good one. Maybe a very good one as well. And on another day, he does have a brace. And Fergie, if you're watching, you would have had a massive haul as your captain. So, yeah, that's mainly what you can take from this game, which is very much just the word evades me, but it's very much what we saw from last season as well. Reinforcement of what we saw last season. There we go. Brentford Villa. You know, last week I spoke about how you put 3 ball to feet players behind Watkins and it didn't really work. And having a runner in Marlon would have been very useful. And that is true to some extent. But the more I think about it, the more I realize that, or at least in my opinion, that if you did have that, you could potentially still solve it for Watkins and solve it in your attack if you had Rodgers as a 10, because you're just not getting any burst. You're not getting anyone in any close proximity to Watkins to combine with him. And when you give him this, so useful, especially because then you take the goal scoring burden off him. It's not just like your only routes is going to be him hit the channel, get a ball from a long Tielemans pass, goal. But as opposed to this, he can hit a channel, create a bit of space for Rodgers, who can step up, who can carry, and then shoot, right? And you saw these goals a couple of times last year as well. You've also just got someone to combine with. They can assist each other and so on and so on. But with Tielemans deeper and the lack of anyone in that proximity, you saw it with Solanke last season, right? Very much isolated up top, didn't have it. Very different type of strikers, didn't have it, and they struggled. Another thing is, where does Watkins thrive in transition? Having 3 ball to feet players just means that your transition is going to be weaker because naturally you probably want a runner in that case. And aside from Rodgers, McGinn is a carrier, but not to the same quality as Rodgers, and Tielemans is, yeah, he's a passer, but again, a different type, more of a defensive one. And he doesn't have the body to maybe carry and then release as you probably would like for Watkins in those moments. So having someone at 10 who could just burst in Rodgers, I think if you're going to employ this, would be very useful. Obviously, having Marlon, having that different dynamic and being able to stretch the opposition would also be useful, but it doesn't look like that's happening. And on Brentford, I mean, they have a much better team than people made out at the start. You look at their team, right? Schade, who's come on leaps and bounds since he joined. Thiago, very solid. Dango, a player I really liked last season, the look of. And he just looks like he's just a very good player, right? Brentford did well to sign him of all. Yeah, they paid a big fee, but I actually think he'll pay it back. Henderson, you can say what you want about him, but you don't get to the level that he's got. You don't win what he's won without being able to kick the ball. Still very useful. Yeah, okay, fine. He doesn't get into this Liverpool side. But here, with all due respect, they're good. Yarmouk, one of the more underrated players in the league. Damsgaard, we saw what he could do last season. Lewis Potter, deceptively good defensively. I say deceptively good because aesthetically, you associate someone who defends like him in terms of how it looks with one of the weaker defenders. But no, he's good. He's solid. Can provide you a lot going forward. Not just overlaps, for example, but underlaps in the pockets. Retention's pretty good. Small space ability is pretty good. Clean passer, very useful. Coyote, very solid in pretty much every regard. Nathan Collins, one of the best ball-playing centre-backs in the league. Had a great season last year, very strong defensively. Ethan Pinnock, when he comes back into the side. Sepp van den Berg. Kelleher's won multiple finals at Wembley for his side. And that's enough said, right? Like, against Chelsea in finals, again and again and again, for a reason. So, they've got a really solid side. And as long as they're well coached, which honestly, I don't see why not. I don't really know much about Keith Andrews, but I like that he's got a bit of bite to him. As a good man, as good of a manager as Thomas Frank, I think no, obviously not. But early days, he'll develop and get better and better and better. But they've got enough talent, so as long as it stays a happy camp, I think they'll be more than okay. No, relegation's not even like a discussion with them. They're so far above that. Leeds versus Everton was the first Monday night football of the season. And in it, you saw a game where, on the surface, it may appear that Leeds looked really strong and had a good game. For me, personally, it was more so Everton being poor. And in fact, I don't think I've seen a performance in a long time where the quality of performance was so much lower than the quality of the side and what you'd expect from them. I mean, they were miles off it. I think it was primarily an issue with the midfield three and how they were used and what they did on the night, but that's for another day. One thing you could see, however, is when you took away the commentary and the crowd, because when the crowd get into it so much, you do as well, to an extent, even if you're not conscious of it, and it can add to the sense of how good the performance was, even if it wasn't right. That's with anything, right? You get a lot of people screaming something, and at least get you to consider it or feel something else, potentially. And one thing that was apparent to me is that the 1v1 quality across the pitch wasn't probably where it needed to be. And if they were to come up against an opposition that would progress better and had more 1v1 quality and would pass better, they could struggle. And Arsenal have all of that, and they hurt them. I don't think Arsenal were particularly good again, to be honest with you, but they were better than Leeds. And they are better than Leeds, with all due respect. And as such, scoreline was what it was. Calafiori in this new left-hand side role looks seriously dangerous. I mean, it's very free for him just to wander into those spaces, go a little bit wider if he needs to be, go into that left half space. Unlike Lewis Skelly, who'd be a bit more restricted in that sense, he's got the capability to function in the final third immensely, right? Great ball striking as well, as you saw away at the Etihad last season. So he's certainly going to pick up points at some point from that role. And he's just been excellent in general. Even 1v1 defensively, very solid. Yeah, okay, fine. Savinho ripped him in game week 5 last season, but I thought that was just brilliant from Savinho as opposed to awful from Calafiori. Savinho, funny enough, is one of City's best players in my opinion, and now he's leaving. Or at least he looks to be leaving. Arsenal's left wing up. Still, I don't love the dynamics. A bit better with Calafiori, but in terms of their ability to get output, just with how much the left back and the left central midfielder and Declan Rice have brought inside, I think it's very difficult for either Madueke, who's playing on his wrong side, or Martinelli to deliver goals and assists. Gyökeres obviously had a very tough time against De Ligt in game week 1, and I can see a continuation of this trend. Okay, yeah, he scored a brace. One was a penalty, and the goal that he scored, and I mean this with the greatest respect, against a better side and better opponent there, that ain't happening. That's just not happening. I mean, the centre-backs in this league, for the most part, I think will be able to deal with him. And I wouldn't buy into this brace too much. I said it before as well. I don't love it. As of now, one thing I will say about Leeds is Ethan Ampadu missing was a big deal. And if he's going to be missing for game week 3, there's definitely a chance Newcastle hurt them as well. Long balls into the right winger. This is something, now the ball is, by the way, on the D, on the image. This is something you didn't see much of from Arsenal last season, but I noticed it in the first maybe 5, 10, 20 minutes of the game, and I was surprised. They were just going into Saka so much. Usually you see them build, but they're just going again and again into Saka. And this is great because if Saka can get more 1v1 opportunities with his fullback, where he isn't as wide and in general there's a bit more space, a bit more open, he's going to get returns. Obviously out for 3 to 4 weeks, but something to consider when he comes back. Ethan Nwaneri in the middle, really good. Max Dowman is a superstar. He's a generational talent, and he will do phenomenal things, right? He should do phenomenal. He is so good. I mean, when he gets you one-on-one, you're in big trouble. You may very well be finished. He's just top. There's no words to like actually describe how good he is, but he's top. And Nwaneri in the middle is looking really promising as well, especially if Odegaard's injury keeps him out of Anfield. The physicality at Anfield will be one thing, though, with Liverpool's counter press and just the game that you can get in a big one at Anfield with how the flow can go, very intense. So it'll be interesting to see if he does, how he adapts to that. Zubimendi and Rice's partnership is one I quite like because Zubimendi will sit at the base. He will do a lot of what you'd want from a 6 in build-up. Well, he'd do pretty much everything you'd want, and therefore it means that Rice doesn't have to do that. Rice can function a bit more like a destroyer. Obviously, he plays higher than most people who play in, not his position because he's functioning as a left 8, but if you took his profile and you put him under most coaches, he wouldn't be playing this high, I don't think. And what that allows him to do is be an offensive, defensive weapon. Essentially, because he's so good in terms of his recoveries, and Arsenal's squad or 11 is so good in terms of their ability in defensive transition to restructure, get back, and the athletes that they have, you can almost allow to have one extra man to go and break that block down in higher areas. And then on top of that, he gives you the box threat as opposed to just the numerical advantage there. And that's a big plus, and it's not something that most sides have. So it's something I would look out for. Definitely increases the spread of output for FPL, but it's useful for Arsenal scoring goals and you not keeping clean sheets against them. And Raya, in terms of keeping clean sheets for Arsenal now, one thing, and it's always been like this, as we will discuss with Jordan Pickford, is just having a keeper who bails you out and gets you points. That save in the first half of the corner was really good. The saves in game week 2 last season, save in game week away at Aston Villa, were really good. And you will get clean sheets at some point in the season because Raya keeps them for you, right? Where the defense is just switched off or a moment's happened and you will keep them. And that's something to consider, right? That even if Arsenal are looking to, that they're going to concede a few chances, he'll bail you out at some point. I said it earlier in the video, but Crystal Palace, Oliver Glasner and Steve Parish are amazing at their jobs. I mean, Palace defensively are so good and they're so hard to break down, as Chelsea found out, and now as Forest have found out, that having assets against them is not going to be something you're going to enjoy really attacking ones. And if you manage to get attacking returns against them, 1, consider yourself lucky, and 2, your player would have probably had a very good game or a lucky one, but probably a combination of both. You can't really hurt them in transition because of how they set up, and they're not exactly very open to being hurt in that way. It's why they commit huge number of bodies forward, especially, and then leave themselves not compact in the middle. They've got that. They've got the centre backs to be able to deal with it. If you want to go 1v1 with them on their last line, and like I said, they're deep enough, and they're not like Bournemouth enough where they're going to have that game. And then breaking down their block with Wharton and Hughes in the middle, the wing backs they have, and how they are defensively 1v1, and especially the centre backs. I mean, so physical, so good in the air, can be very aggressive as well, happy to step up, positionally very sound, very intelligent, and they're very well coached. And you get a lot out of the front three. They're very good at blocking passing lanes as well. I mean, like, you know, you need a lot. You need a lot of spray down. As pretty much everyone has found out recently, right? There's a reason that most people do not beat Crystal Palace, even the bigger teams. And Forest 11, at least, is very much built to thrive in transition with Joy and Cho and Gibbs White in particular. But with the introductions of McAtee and Hutchinson, which is why I think he brought them on in this particular type of game, maybe if it was a Bournemouth, he wouldn't have. They've got more weapons to break this block down. So that's something to consider going forward for them. They have more solutions to different problems now. Enjoys a little bit of a hybrid as well, as is Callum Hudson-Odoi as well, to be honest with you. But even still, even against this type of block, even if they had more minutes, I'm not sure they would have made too many inroads. 1 or 2 here or there, yeah, but they wouldn't have ripped Palace apart left, right, and centre, I don't think. Albeit they did get into the game and into their attacking stride as the game went on. And then Eze's just missed. I mean, not having that outlet, not having his carrying. And then it's one thing to be able to carry, but then also to release, as he has done into Matessa and Sars. Another thing, his goals, general final third quality, is definitely going to be a miss for them. And they'll absorb more pressure as a result, and they'll score less goals as a result. That I'm pretty sure of. Everton versus Brighton, just a few things to discuss here because I didn't get too much of the game. Brighton's front 4 mental profiles, in terms of get well back out there, Ruta, Segrudo Riley in the middle, Minter, and especially Minter Matoma on the left and right. I spoke about this towards the start of last season, are all similar when it comes to goal scoring. They're not ruthless in that sense. They're not killers. It almost seems like they just have a mental block when it comes to it. That's something to consider in these type of games. In the bigger games, as we've spoken about with big game Brighton, it's like they just come alive, right? But in these type of situations, with these type of finishes, right, they almost just have a bit of a block. Pickford, similar to Raya, you'll get clean sheets for Tarkowski just because Pickford delivers them for you. He comes clutch for Everton. And yeah, sure, that's not like deepest bit of analysis I've ever done, but he does come clutch for Everton. Not everything needs to be, super detailed. Sometimes someone's just lucky or someone's just finds a way. They find a way. And I'm sure you know someone like that, or you're like that. You just find a way. And he's like that for Everton. The goal scoring will be interesting because there are going to be games where you need a runner, especially in wide areas. And if you've got Dribbling, Njai in the middle, Grealish on the left, you don't really have that at all, right? So there are going to be games where it's interesting to see that dynamic. One thing, though, it's such an overload of quality to have in a midfield three, an attacking three, that at some point that they could certainly hire you. So the goal scoring will be interesting, right? Tactically, it's probably not great, but quality-wise, it's so high that we'll see where they land. But they'll probably land somewhere in the positive department. And lastly, on them, Grealish. I mean, you bring a player of his quality, it's pretty much always going to improve a side. Looked really good. And you got a lot out of him out of possession as well, which would mean that they don't have to compensate in other areas. So overall, that addition, great. And going forward, they should be solid at least. Lastly, the 4:30 game on the Sunday, Fulham versus United. I really like what Marco Silva did with his press. I thought it was a great solution to what United posed. Effectively, a 2-3. It was varied, but effectively a 2-3 in the middle with Muniz and Josh King, and then behind him, Sasha Lucas, Sander Berg, Alex Iwobi, blocking access into the pivot of Casemiro and Bruno Fernandes, blocking the passing lane into the 10 if you wanted to go long along the ground. And then what the wing-backs would do is they would tuck in, right? They would form a 5, Fulham off the ball, and the wing-backs would tuck in, and they would essentially be able to double up on United's 10s in Bruno and Cunha, in Cunha, Mount, and Mbeumo, depending on who was on the left. Mbeumo always on the right. And that meant that United's only real out, that was easy, and the guys who had space and time were the wing-backs. And given that where they were situated, given that, for example, Dorgu's left-footed as well, not really that pocket player type, he wants to deliver crosses in the final third and get on the end of things and whip it in, as opposed to loads of combinations in deeper areas. And the type of player that Ahmad is as well. That solution for Fulham, I thought, was great. Manchester United in possession. My preference in terms of how wing-backs are used in general is not how United are using them at the moment. You take Dorgu, right, as I just expressed, and what he wants to be doing. Well, a lot of the time, he needs to be available to combine with Cunha or Bruno Fernandes on the left, but he doesn't really have that skill set. So you're not gaining maximum utility out of the left wing-back. Even with Ahmad on the right, for Mbeumo in particular, I don't think you want a left footer. I think I'd prefer a right footer to allow him to stay inside and have a similar functioning to the Chelsea right 10 in Gustavo, Palmer, and Gusto on the right-hand side, as opposed to Ahmad, who also wants to come in and interact within the same space that Mbeumo does as well, right? So how they're being used, and we could go into that in a lot more depth, but how they're being used is not something I like. The numerical disadvantages in the middle and advantages in wide areas aren't something I think that serve them either with this use of players in terms of the combination, as I expressed with Fulham's press. And then what colour cloud? They just seem to have a black cloud over their head. And I'll speak about this in transfer plans, but it's why I've called on Cunha. It's just like nothing goes right for them, right? Like literally nothing ever goes right for them. For example, right, Cunha, if he was in a Wolves, even if he was in a Wolves shot, right, would that shot have gone in? The one that Raya saved really well. Would he have hit the post or the inside of the post, and would it have gone in? As he scored a brace at the Cottage last season, would he have scored that chance when Bayende went long term? Because I was sure that was going in the net. And it's not just him. It's just like Bruno Fernandes' penalty. Even after they spent all this money, like it just doesn't click for them, and it hasn't for about 12 years. And I just don't trust them, partially as a result, but I just don't trust them to get the job done. And something to consider because they have some bad luck at that club, and they have for a while now. Moving on to the title of the video, transfer plans. Should I sell Cole Palmer? Maybe. If I do, it's going to be a slightly different strategy to what you may expect or what you may see out there. I'm quite confident that if I do, and I don't have a preference to, but if I do, I will go to a cheaper midfielder, 6.5 million or less. I will explain why I've called him Matthias Cunha, and it's very much a follow-on from what I just expressed. I don't trust them. I think they'll beat Burnley, and I wouldn't be one bit surprised if he scored. But going forward, even though City, for them, is it's a very good matchup, actually. I'm not sure there's a better stylistic matchup for them. They have issues against blocks, but if you want a side who aren't great in defensive transition, like City, who would definitely give you opportunities to hurt them in that way, and with United's make of him, Mbeumo, Cunha, even Sesko, who looks quite raw at the moment. Yeah, I love it. But I just don't trust them. Like, they'll somehow mess it up. Like, they have done for such a long period of time. I'm just not willing to do that at the moment. Right, and it's not like City are the worst side ever defensively. It's not like that at all. They can still put up a good defensive performance, and they're not playing a newly promoted side in 4 and 5. Obviously, they've got Chelsea in 5, which won't be easy either. And with that in mind, I think I'm going to fade him, because the other thing is, if I'm right that long-term he's not the play, and I look at all the other expensive mids, Verts, and let's just go 7 up, even Semenyo, I don't want any of them. There's not a single one that I look at and I'm like, yeah, I want that. And I think if I go into a 6-5 and I leave myself so much in the bank, I can get to any of them, right? And I can upgrade Marlin to any of them by the time we come to Game Week 4. And I think I'd quite like that. Bruno Guimaraes is someone I'm looking at. Leeds away, Wolves at home, Bournemouth. All games where I could see them scoring goals. Good on DEFCON. He can get some attacking returns as well. Okay, yeah, I'm not the most exciting pick. One I actually feel quite good about. If I knew Jacob Ramsey was going to start at 5-5 with good expected minutes, that's also one I'd look at. And that's Reinders maybe as well. Those are the 3 that I've got in my mind at the moment. In terms of Cole Palmer himself, obviously the scam will come back either the day you're watching this or the day after. I'd really like not to sell him. I'd love to take 2 frees into the break. I'd love to take 2 frees into the break so much and go from there. I also think his prospects against Fulham could be pretty decent, but we'll have to see what comes of it. Talking about some other players, but I'm going to speak about one other player that's not in this slide, and that's Florian Wirtz. Just because I've seen a lot of people are going to hold him for Burnley and Everton, and I think that's fair. I would consider looking to maybe sell. I'm not saying to sell. I'm saying to consider the sell, because at that 8.5 spot, he's taken up a very valuable spot in your midfield. I know I said I don't really like too many of the expensive options, but it also coincides with my plans, right? I wouldn't mind taking a gamble on Cunha if I didn't have such strict plans about how I wanted to use my squad and transfers. And if he's blocking that, I wouldn't mind it for some short-term upside. Because against Arsenal, I'm not so sure he does the damage him in particular. And also, he's getting subbed around, like 80? Now, it's still 10 minutes that you're losing. In this game, 20 that you're losing a game. So that's something to consider. I'm not selling AIT-NOURI. There's no way I sell AIT-NOURI. Apparently, he's out for 3 weeks. All right, he'll miss Brighton. He will be out for the whole international break. Maybe he'll be back for 4, maybe not. I don't really care. They're probably not keeping a clean sheet against United anyway. And then in 5, yeah, it's Arsenal at home, but that game usually is quite slow in nature. Obviously, you had the thrashing at the end of last season, but I don't think Pep will let that happen again. So, and I want him from 6 onwards, and he'll be fit for then. So there's absolutely no way that I sell him. There's no need to, especially if Cole Palmer's a challenge. Last thing, could I take a hit? Could I sell Palmer and Marlin? Yeah, I could, but I think my squad's strong enough whereby I don't want to do that. I don't feel the need to take a hit in this spot. That is all she wrote for this one, ladies and gentlemen. I certainly hope you enjoyed, as I did. If you want change, if you want a change, consider joining my community. Because like I said, I can guarantee if you engage in the community, come Sunday night or throughout the week, you will feel better about FPL. You will have so much more fun playing it. And probably you'll experience a lot more success, as many did last season. Consider joining, consider clicking the website below to read the testimonials. I'm sure at least one will resonate with you. In the meantime, between now and everything you need, I'd love to see you in there. But regardless, have a terrific day, and I'll see you then. Goodbye.